Hey guys, I'm Nick Cole, and I'm with Southeastern 14, where we're previewing all of the Week 2 SEC football betting action. Today, we're breaking down the Florida versus South Florida game in Tampa, where actually the Gators are a visitor with the South Florida Bulls at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers home stadium. This game is played at 1 p.m. Eastern on Saturday on ABC is where you're going to find this one. And from a betting standpoint, the Gators are a huge favorite. They opened as a 29-point favorite. That number has dropped slightly to 28 and a half. And then the over-under has seen a little bit more movement. It opened at 54 and a half, and it's up all the way to 58 and a half at the time of this video. Bringing in our gambling expert, Christopher Smith. Christopher, how are you feeling about that in-state matchup there down in the Sunshine State?
I have a feeling we're going to see a little bit more of this than we will be seeing of this in the crowd. You know, there's plenty of Gators fans in Tampa and Orlando that are loving this location for this game. But we'll see which of these teams is celebrating in terms of the cover and making money on this game once the clock hits zero. But first, Nick, let's take us through the Knicks news and notes and let us know the key headlines that are surrounding these programs right now.
Sure. Well, let's start with the weather and some injuries. From a weather standpoint, we've got a high of 88 in Tampa on Saturday, and we'll be playing it right through the heat of the day. But like any other day in Florida, as you know, Christopher, there's chances for isolated thunderstorms. I think you got a 33% chance at this point. Wind shouldn't be a factor, be under 10 miles an hour. So sunny, hot with that chance of a storm mid-game. Probably more worried about a lightning delay than anything else, right? Injury-wise, the Gators, Trey Dean left the game against FAU, and he's listed as questionable for this game. So it's possible they're without him, defensive back there. And then as getting into the notes for this game, first, before we get into talking about anything that Florida could do or that USF did do, let's talk about the Gators Week 1 game against FAU and how wrong they did the bettors that backed them in that game. They ended up winning 35-14, which was a comfortable win. But that left those laying the 23 and a half points, just short of the number that they needed to make for the Gators to be a winner on their ticket. And they kind of did it in a rough way. The Gators threw an interception in the end zone. They went for it on 4th and goal from the 5, and did a quarterback sneak when they could have easily kicked a field goal early on in that game. And then also they allowed a late touchdown from the Owls to cover backdoor there in that 35-14 game. So just a tough one all the way around if you were back in the Gators. But what we did learn from that game on the Florida side is that we may have a little bit more of a quarterback controversy in Gainesville than we ever anticipated. Emory Jones is still the starter, and Dan Mullen kind of scoffed when he was asked after the game if there might be a controversy. But whoever watched that game couldn't walk away from it going, are they actually playing their best quarterback? Jones kind of underwhelmed. He threw for 113 yards, 2 interceptions in a game against an FAU team that, Willie Taggart's team had a pretty good defense, but nothing that should have troubled him that much throwing the ball. And it's become clear that the freshman quarterback, Anthony Richardson, who, by the way, is wearing number 15 at Florida, if that reminds you of anybody, is going to be a factor in this offense. He rushed for 160 yards in true Tebow fashion, including a long touchdown run. And at 6'4", 236, he reminds you when he takes that snap in that Dan Mullen offense of number 15. So that's something to watch going into this game. And then the other thing is just to remind you of how far USF has fallen over the last decade or so. In their Week 1 game, it was pretty apparent. They lost to NC State on the road, 45-0. And their 2 quarterbacks, Timmy McClain and Cade Fortin, combined to complete just 14 of 33 passes for no touchdowns, obviously, and 3 interceptions. So we mentioned it before, USF comes home to play this game in Tampa, but they're going to be in front of a crowd that's pretty pro-Gator, I think. Throwing all that into the pot, Christopher, what are you seeing from a betting standpoint for this game?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just to touch on the quarterback situation, I think where we are now is Anthony Richardson is more talented. And it's a mistake to say just as a runner, because I actually am hearing and thinking that he's more talented as a passer as well. But at least today, Emory Jones is better at running the offense at Florida. He's more familiar with the system, has a better command on it. So I do expect that Richardson will take over at some point this season, assuming that he gets a little bit better command of the offense. But now in terms of this game, who's the coach at USF? It's Jeff Scott. And you may remember Jeff Scott for being a Clemson assistant from 2008 to 2019, including the last several years as co-coordinator there and coaching some big time players at Clemson. But you look at his resume, he has one other year of college experience, and that was coaching receivers at an FCS program, Presbyterian, in 2007. And that's it. So, he's never even been more than a co-coordinator. And now he's trying to resurrect South Florida. And part of the reason that they hired him at South Florida was to send a jolt into that offense. Now, they've already played in the truncated season last year, and then last week they've now played Notre Dame, Cincinnati, and NC State. And any guesses how many points that USF scored in those 3 games combined? 7 total points. And now you look at Florida, and before they gave up 2 fourth quarter touchdowns to Florida Atlantic, they allowed 211 points with their 211 yards with their starters out there. 3 interceptions, gave up only 2.5 yards per carry to FAU. And we already know that USF is not going to be able to throw the ball. They just can't. They couldn't throw against NC State. They're not going to be able to throw against Florida. And so this actually is I think will be an improved Gators defense against the run, maybe one of their best run defenses in the last several years. And they seem finally healthy up front. So also, if you look at kind of the projections from SP Plus or the Action Network or Brad Powers or any sort of the respected people that make their power ratings public in the college football betting realm. And most of them have Florida as, like a 31 or pretty good sized favorite in this game on a neutral field. So you're telling me, based on the current line of Florida minus 28.5, that I'm supposed to give South Florida 2 or 3 points of home field advantage in this game? I don't think so. I think it'll be 90% plus Gators fans. So that should play into the handicap for me a little bit. But I do think there's one bet that's probably even smarter than that, and I'll get to that in a second. But first, Nick, why don't you tell us what you're putting your money on in this game?
Well, I think we see this game pretty similarly. I think Florida wins and pretty easily. I certainly wish that this was on the other side of the 4 touchdowns. If for some reason before kickoff it moves to 28 or 27.5, even better, man, I'd be all over that. But even at 28.5, I think I'm comfortable laying the points with the Gators. And then I like the under 58.5 for a lot of the reasons you just sort of brought up. I don't see USF scoring much, if at all, in a game against this caliber defense. And I don't know that Florida is going to score enough to cover 58.5 all on their own. So give me Florida. Let's lay the points, but let's play it safe and go under 58.5. Christopher, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's so tough to handicap about a game like this is what are the teams going to do in the fourth quarter when the game's far been decided long ago. And we saw, I just mentioned, Florida gave up 2 fourth quarter touchdowns in this situation just last week to Florida Atlantic. Now, Florida Atlantic is a much more talented offense with some leftover Kiffin recruits than what we see with, I believe, was it Willie Taggart, the last coach at South Florida. And, the thing that I would really be looking to do, so I will go under 58.5 just for the purposes of this show to record my pick. But if I could really place a bet, and I'll probably be looking for this actually in my sports books, would be a team total under on South Florida. To me, that's the play. Anything that is 10 or higher is an under for me. If you can get a 10.5 at least, that looks really, really juicy to me, especially if there's even like a first half team total. That would be just a guaranteed under for me. But I'll also take Florida minus 28.5. I just think that they're going to have the ball for way too long. I do think that they'll give Richardson some legitimate run at quarterback after they pull Emory Jones, just because they need to get him some experience running the offense, and they need to see, just how good he is and evaluate him a little bit more. So I think for that standpoint, I like Florida minus 28.5 because I can see them. Dan Mullen is normally one of those coaches that actually puts in his backups early and often in these games, but because of needing to evaluate Richardson, I could see on offense and breaking in a lot of new passing targets. I could see them extending that with their good players a little bit longer. So minus 28.5 for Florida and under 58.5 for me. But for Nick Cole, I'm Christopher Smith for SEC 14, and we will talk to you next week.